All right, we are looking today. We're going to finish up chapter 4, and then we're going to get into chapter 5 today. And I think we can cover the entire chapter because it's a genealogy that we'll look a little bit more closely at. We left off chapter 4 with Cain, and we have the story of Cain and Abel. We know about that, and then it got into Cain's genealogy, and I want to review that because that's going to be the setting and the contrast with chapter 5. So what I want to do is read Cain's genealogy one more time from chapter 4, 17 to the end of the chapter to 24, if I can find it again here. There we go. Is that big enough? Can anyone see that? Claudette, I'm going to start with you, if you wouldn't mind. 17 to 24. Let's get a quick review of chapter 4.
Okay. Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bore Enoch. When he built a city, he called the name of the city after the name of his son, Enoch. To Enoch was born Irad, and Irad fathered Mehujael, and Mehujael fathered Methusiel, and Methusiel fathered Lamech. And Lamech took 2 wives. The name of the one was Ada, and the name of the other was Zillah. Ada bore Jabal. He was the father of those who dwell in tents and have livestock. His brother's name was Jubal. He was the father of all those who play the lyre and pipe. Zillah also bore Tubal Cain. He was the forger of all instruments of bronze and iron. The sister of Tubal Cain was Naamah. Lamech had said to his wives, Ada and Zillah, hear my voice. You wives of Lamech, listen to what I say. I have killed a man for wounding me, a young man for striking me. If Cain's revenge is 7-fold, then Lamech's is 77-fold.
Okay. All right. So we go from Cain to Lamech, and not a lot is said about them. They give the names of the fathers and the sons, and then a couple of wives are mentioned. But what were some of the themes of this genealogy that we can highlight that really define Cain and his line and the line of men? What were some of the things we discussed last time?
I wasn't here last time. I'm just looking at that first verse, and anytime someone names a city after somebody himself, I think of Nebuchadnezzar building a statue to himself, that kind of thing.
Rob, I'm glad you brought that up because I have some questions about that. How did he get the garden and then build a city? Where did he get this technology from?
That's a great question. They have theories about that, Teresa. We're not told in the scriptures how he got the knowledge to do that, but there are according to the Jewish apocryphal traditions, they believe that the fallen angels, these spiritual beings, came down and shared that technology with mankind. In fact, that's often what you see in the mythology of the Greeks and the Romans, that you have a god who steals fire and brings it down to mankind and teaches them how to use it. And remember, in the Garden of Eden, the fruit that was forbidden was this tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So there's this knowledge of how things go and work in the world, and that gives them power. That's what this quest is after. Cain also is, we don't know how many years after the fall in the garden this is happening. Cain could have been, a couple hundred years old for all we know. We're going to see that some of these fathers are like a couple hundred years old when they have their first kid.
Yeah, but that's an awful big jump for that. And also, didn't God have the tree guarded?
The tree of life was guarded, but the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And so we have there is this rebellion going on in the spiritual realms. And so we're not told about in these texts of how that knowledge comes to them, but it does. They get there, and they have the technology in Babel to use to make bricks and so forth like that. So Yeah,
Because
they're advanced. I mean, their knowledge of how much information does God share with them, how much is given to them by, demonic powers. You're going to see that throughout the scriptures, that you have people seeking wisdom and guidance from spiritual beings, from angels, from fallen beings. And so they're real. And that's the thing. It's like, this is real.
It is interesting. It struck me that, in history, we hear about the Bronze Age and the Iron Age, and here we have one person working with bronze and iron.
Again, this is all pre-flood.
Yeah.
So that technology would have been washed away. But yeah, I mean, you have these mysteries of these ancient civilizations that are highly advanced, like the Egyptians. The ancient Egyptians knew how to fly. They have evidence of them, yes, of having like balloons and being able to. They understood the concept of the hot air rising and able to do that. They have some incredible mysteries they're trying to figure out. I think they even had evidence of like an ancient battery, strangely enough, where they had like acid and things like that. They
Yes.
used. So it's remarkable. But again, it shouldn't shock us. That these things, that it doesn't take millions of years to reveal things. I mean, it just takes someone to reveal it to them, whether it's God or another spiritual power to do that. But in any case, but I think, Rob, your point being he builds, one thing that's noteworthy for Cain is there is this pride in him. He builds a city, names it for his son. This line is filled with pride and accomplishments. The father of those who dwell in tents and have livestock, the father of those who play instruments, the forger of those of instruments of bronze and iron. Accomplishments, technology, pride. But there's one more thing that really defines Cain from beginning to end. Murder. Yeah. Violence. And vengeance. That's, this bitter violence really defines him. So that Cain, murders his brother. And we have Lamech boasting about he's killed a man for wounding him, taking vengeance upon him. So this kind of warrior mentality, this is the line of the serpent. And one more thing we forgot to mention, there's only a couple women mentioned it. Why do you think the women are mentioned? Ada and Zillah.
Well, one was the fact that it looks more like he took them as opposed to knowing them. And he pulls them aside and he's boasting to them how, like he's proud of the fact that he killed somebody.
Yeah. There's no shame. There's no humility. There's no shame. And he takes 2 wives. Again, that is forbidden. That was something very clearly stated. The man shall leave his father and mother, the 2 shall become one. That's the original intent. Polygamy was not. This is a breach. This is a break of a rebellion against God's order. And he takes 2, and then he takes 2 wives, like teach them like possessions of his. This is so different from the song of Adam at the beginning. This is now bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. It's violent. It shows the corruption of mankind. So that's the backdrop for the next part now, because you're going to ask the question, is there any hope for us? When you see, we've just heard the story of the fall of Adam and Eve, and then to the murder of innocent Cain, and then this line of Cain that ends with such awfulness, godlessness, and pride, and you despair, and you're like, is there any hope for mankind? And that's where we pick up at the end of chapter 4, verse 25, down to the end of the chapter. Let's read that real quick. 25 and 26. Jack, you want to get that for us?
Sure. And Adam knew his wife again, and she bore a son and called his name Seth. for she said, God has appointed for me another offspring instead of Abel, for Cain had killed him. To Seth also a son was born, and he called his name Enosh, at a time when people began to call upon the name of the Lord.
Okay.
So at that time, people began to call upon the name of the Lord.
Yes, thank you. All right, so let's take a look at this here. So Adam and Eve, Adam knew his wife again, and she bears a son. What's his name?
Seth.
Seth. What does the name Seth mean? There was a footnote for it. Did anyone have that in their Bibles? What the name means?
Appointed.
It means appointed. Okay. And here's the point about Seth is that the significance of Seth, because remember, Adam and Eve would have had many sons and daughters. They would have had to have had them. If Cain is going to be finding a wife, there has to be other sons and daughters already there. Why Seth is called out is he has a special purpose and function. What is Seth's destiny? What's his purpose here? What makes him special?
It's the godly line, I would think.
It is the godly line, but it says specifically in verse 25 something about him.
Or was she
God
here
has
like a replacement for Abel?
Yes, Seth is the replacement for Abel, in a sense. He rises in Abel's place. Abel was the righteous son. He was the son of the woman. And Cain is the son of the serpent. And Cain strikes, kills his brother. But remember, the prophecy is that the son of the woman must crush the head of the serpent. He must rise victorious. And so Abel dies. And so they draw a tight connection that Abel and Seth are a pair. Abel rises again in Seth. And so Seth will pick up where Abel left off, and it'll be Seth who will have the last laugh, so to speak, as Cain's line will be wiped out by the flood, but only Seth's line will remain through Noah. So that's where we're going to begin here. Seth,
My Bible has a footnote about Seth's name,
yeah,
that it's a synonym for Adam in Hebrew.
really?
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't see that.
Really? Synonym for Adam.
yeah.
What's the note exactly? Is that what the note says
It says-
exactly?
It says for 25F has granted Hebrew Shat a wordplay on the name Shet, and then they have in parentheses Seth. Okay. But then it goes on, Enosh in Hebrew, a synonym of Adam, man.
Oh, Enosh is a synonym for Adam. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. Yes,
Oh, that's interesting.
Enosh is,
So, all right, this is really interesting now. So, all right, so we've got Seth has a son, and he's called Enosh, and you're saying that that is a synonym for same name as Adam,
for Adam, they both mean man.
also means man, like Adam. Okay. So in a sense, we're presented with a new line here of man. What makes Enosh special?
The second Adam will come from him.
Yeah, second Adam definitely will come from, but in this verse 26, what makes Enosh really special, according to our narrative so far?
Because it's when people started calling on the name of the Lord.
People began to call upon the name of the Lord. Now, in the scriptures, what does that mean, to call upon the name of the Lord?
Pray.
That's faith, right?
Mhm.
That's faith for salvation. we would say. Remember, in that day, in Acts chapter 2, Peter is quoting Joel, the prophet, and he says, he talks about the judgment that's coming, the blood, the fire and smoke, and all who call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. That phrase, all who call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. Same thing in Romans 10. Everyone who calls upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. So this is the first mention of salvation. People, there's something going on when Enosh comes along, that it's not just him, but people, his family, or whoever it is, there is this group of people now calling upon the name of the Lord for salvation. And I think you can kind of feel that. I mean, that's how you feel when you're coming out of this context of violence and bloodshed and pride and arrogance, and that leads people to a place they feel the distress, they feel the judgment, and call upon the name of the Lord. Which, by the way, so as you see our culture degrading, don't despair, because that's when you really also will be seeing people calling upon the name of the Lord, because they're. I can't. Do you know how many people I've heard this testimony from? I was listening to a podcast the other day, and there was a guy. He just became a Christian a year ago. He's a podcaster and a pundit, really sharp guy, and this is what convinced him. He had never really believed, he says, but what convinced him was he saw the condition of the world, and he couldn't deny that there was real evil in this world. And he was seeing it close up. And he says, if evil is real and there are evil powers at work, then there must be good. There must be a God that they're rebelling against. And that's how it began the journey of faith, is an encounter with evil, which is really interesting. And I'm hearing more people having that same thing. They're like, they can't deny there's something wicked afoot. When you're in a society that is right now trying to normalize pedophilia, folks, that's I don't know how you get much worse than that. There's a wicked power behind that. And I think even atheists, many of them are starting to see that as well. So whatever reason though,
The thing that comes in my head is, okay, they're seeing that there's real evil, so there's got to be real good. And there's so many different groups out there claiming to be Christian that aren't. How do they find the right one?
well, you know what's interesting? How many of them came to Christianity is they realized that it's the only religion that is continually under attack. You know, the evil powers of this world are not attacking Hinduism. They're not attacking Islam. They're not attacking, any of the pagan religions. They're attacking Christianity, and pretty much solely Christianity. I mean, maybe some Judaism too, but that's where you really see them. When evil forces are targeting all their attention, you can think about it. You are not allowed to criticize any faith or worldview except Christianity, right? I mean, how in the world do the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence put on this blasphemous display and get away with it, knowing that it offends, so many people in the country and the world, and yet they can do it because that's fair game. Do you think they would have a Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence against the Quran? You think that you would have them dressing up like Muhammad doing this kind of stuff? No, not happening. But they can do this against Christianity. So it's obvious who they hate. And I think that's actually kind of helpful when you see evil powers, and then you start really, okay, they're evil, and they hate this particular group. Okay, so that group is worth checking out if evil powers hate them. You got the right enemies. So, all right, let's get to the next part here. That we get to the genealogy. Yeah. So what we're gonna do is kind of read through it a little bit and take some observations that are it's an interesting genealogy. This is very, very interesting. So let's take a look at that. Bob Thomas, would you read that for us? Start with verses 1 to 5.
This is the book of the generations of Adam. When God created man, he made him in the likeness of God. Male and female, he created them, and he blessed them and named them man when they were created. When Adam had lived 130 years, he fathered a son in his own likeness, after his image, and named him Seth. The days of Adam after he fathered Seth were 800 years, and he had other sons and daughters. Thus, all the days that Adam lived were 930 years, and he died.
All right, this is the generations of Adam. You'll notice something though. It begins with a reaffirmation of an essential truth that has been lost or forgotten, given the whole Cain incident and the whole of the fall. There's a reaffirmation of something from creation. What's being stated here? The truth about mankind.
We're made in the likeness of God.
There's a couple truths. One, truth number one,
God created man.
yeah, God created man in the likeness
Of
of
God.
So the dignity and the worth of every human being, we are created by God, and we're created in the likeness of God. This is what keeps us humble on the one sense, that we are created beings. We're not our own creators, but also that it gives us the dignity that we are made in the likeness of God.
Mm.
There's one more truth that he mentions here.
Male and
Created
female.
male and female. Yeah.
God created, that seems, I don't know, strangely applicable today. God created them male and female.
Mm.
He created them. That distinction of the role. So it should not surprise you that gender is continually under attack by a wicked world, a depraved world. All the things that are in creation, the creation of us in God's image. We have evolutionary theory telling us, no, they're not special. You're no different from the animals. That's the major teaching of the world, isn't it? That God made us male and female, distinct as human beings, and identified as, I'm a man, you're a woman. That's our identities. That is constantly under attack. They've been doing this gender bending thing for all time. For every society in its decadent stage has that problem of gender
Sodom and
confusion.
Gomorrah.
Yeah, Sodom and Gomorrah. You go back to Rome, and I took an ancient Egypt class, and they actually show you some of the hieroglyphics that they don't show you in the museums. You know how depraved they were, right? Just vile people. They're all that way. They always do that, and you'll notice a lot. How many of the pagan gods are hermaphrodite or are both male and female? You're going to see an amazing number of these false pagan deities who have attributes of both sexes combined and mingled and mixed together. That's all part of the evil. Remember, the evil is it's formless and void and darkness. And so they get to be formless is evil. When you remove the distinctions, there's no clarity. And that's what they're doing here in the world.
Aren't there also part man, part animal?
Yeah, exactly right. They remove, remember, and that's a great point, Bob, because remember when God creates the animals, he creates them according to their kinds, distinguishes them. And it's the evil in the world, the rebellious forces that wants to mix and match and to blur all distinctions. Everything is gray now. We can't have dark and light. We have to have gray. That's the constant. That's the gravity of this wicked world, always toward those things. And we saw that earlier about the the union of man and woman in marriage, how that's been defiled by polygamy and by all sorts of things. So, all right, let's continue there. All right, so Adam And then he blessed them and named them man when they were created. God blessed them and named them when they were created, showing his ownership of them, showing his authority, but his benevolence toward mankind too, which is easily forgotten.
This shows that there's a note for the word man because he called them both man here.
Mm.
I didn't know if that note was telling us some explanation as to why just man.
Yeah, as a race, there's this union. Remember, Eve comes from Adam.
Mhm.
So she's in him. That's the thing. It's like, yeah. Let's continue here. So Adam, now we have Adam. Let's go through the list here. So here's the format of the genealogy. Okay. All right. Am I getting this right? Genealogy. All right. Form of the genealogy. It goes like this. How is it? It starts off with what in verse 3?
You get an extra A there in the genealogy.
Okay. There you go.
The-
All right.
Oh,
GENALOGY.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Let's see.
You
Is that right?
you get an E in there.
That's right. GENDALOGY.
Is that right? Okay, just checking.
All right. After that word from my editor here, let's continue. We have our what's the format? Look at the format for. Let's just take Adam for example. This is the format that's going to follow through all of them. There are several statements made. First statement is what?
He lived 130 years
Okay.
and then fathered a son.
Okay. So it starts off with age when fathering a son. Okay. In his own likeness, So there's going to be this son. Now, Adam and Eve have many sons and daughters, but we're going to focus on one of them. And it's not necessarily the first one, because Seth, as you know, was not Adam's first son. So but he is special in the line. So the names that are listed are not necessarily the firstborn sons of the father. They are the son that is special, the one that is in the image of the father. Does that make sense? So there's sort of this, just like we would say that with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's not the firstborn sons. Isaac is the secondborn, but he's the one who's chosen. And Jacob's the secondborn, but he's the one that's chosen. So you have that lineage there. So the same thing with this genealogy is the son is not necessarily, it could be the firstborn, as we can see with Seth. So we start with that, the age when fathering this son, the one that will who bears the image of the father. And then what's the next thing it says? Verse 4.
How long
the-
after he lived?
Okay, how long after fathering does he live? The next-
800 years.
He lives 800 years. And then it says that he had other sons and daughters.
Mm.
During that time,
Why is that important to mention that? He had other sons and daughters?
so that you know that just the names that you're given aren't the only children he had.
Not the only ones, but you'll also notice that, remember, what was the very first commandment that God gave Adam and Eve?
Be fruitful.
Multiply.
Be fruitful and multiply.
multiply.
Obedient to being fruitful and multiply. So they have many other sons and daughters. And then we have a total, the total days of his life. And then the last thing it says,
He
And then
died.
he died. He died.
He died. That's going to be the format. That's unusual. You don't see genealogies with that phrase at the end, and he died. Of course he died. We get, but they make that point every single line except for one. So that's the format. The age when fathering that child, that son in his image. This is a special line here. How long after fathering he lives? He had other sons and daughters, and then the total days of his life, and he died. Okay, so let's go through the list here. So we have, let's read the next section here. Let's do Seth down to, I guess, 15, 17, 6 to 17 here. Who we got here? Rob, would you get that for us?
Okay. When Seth had lived 105 years, he fathered Enosh. Seth lived after he fathered Enosh 807 years and had other sons and daughters. Thus all the days of Seth were 912 years, and he died. When Enosh had lived 90 years, he fathered Kenan. Enosh lived after he fathered Kenan 815 years and had other sons and daughters. Thus all the days of Enosh were 905 years, and he died. When Kenan had lived 70 years, he fathered Mahalalel. Kenan lived after he fathered Mahalalel 840 years and had other sons and daughters. Thus all the days of Kenan were 910 years, and he died. And when Mahalalel had lived 65 years, he fathered Jared. Mahalalel lived after he fathered Jared 830 years and had other sons and daughters. Thus, all the days of Mahalalel were 895 years, and he died.
Great. Let's continue. Elizabeth, would you get the next three here from 18 to 27?
When Jared had lived 162 years, he fathered Enoch. Jared lived after he fathered Enoch 800 years and had other sons and daughters. Thus, all the days of Jared were 962 years, and he died. When Enoch had lived 65 years, he fathered Methuselah. Enoch walked with God after he fathered Methuselah 300 years and had other sons and daughters. Thus, all the days of Enoch were 365 years. Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. When Methuselah had lived 187 years, he fathered Lamech. Methuselah lived after he fathered Lamech 782 years and had other sons and daughters. Thus, all the days of Methuselah were 969 years, and he died.
Okay, thank you. Did a great job with the names there, you guys. All right, let's go through this here. So you'll notice the same pattern for every one of them, the same format as for Adam, except with one exception.
Enoch was
Enoch.
killed.
Yes, the one exception is Enoch. And what makes him the exception?
God took him.
He didn't die, God took him.
Yeah, first off, we said he did not die. He did not die.
And he walked with God.
And he walked with God. And God took him. So why is that important for us here?
This is a line that's really close to God.
It is.
It's our hope.
Remember this. Why are they all dying?
Sin.
This is the problem, right? The wages of sin
There is death.
is death. That's why they all die. But there is one who escapes death. And how does he escape it?
I
Grace.
walk with God,
And what might we call that?
faith.
Yeah. He escapes by faith. So there you have the pattern already set up about you'll notice that Enoch, there's nothing said about him. He doesn't build anything. He has no technology. There's no legacy. There's no pride. We know nothing about him, at least from the text here, just that he walked with God. And what
He
that
was
means.
about a third, he was 2/3 younger than the rest of them.
Yeah.
Yes,
All
He was just a kid.
900 years old, and he was only 365 years old.
Yeah,
Mm.
only 365 years. Can you imagine that? Just a whippersnapper.
just a kid, yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting that everyone as a child, at an earlier age, up to, then you jump back up to 162 years. But each
Yeah,
one,
that-
when 105, 90, 70, 65,
Yeah, it's very interesting that they are,
they were doing it younger, and they also seem to die younger.
so some of the things what I want to take a look at with you is, let's, where do we leave off here? Methuselah died. Let's finish up the chapter here. And then I made a little chart for you to see,
Oh, nice.
Mm.
so we can kind of make some observations of this here. So 28 to 32, Bob Fowler, would you get that for us? Is that big enough?
When Lamech had lived
Sorry. I don't know why it does this. It's always bouncing around when I make it bigger. It skips around. See, look at that. Terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible. I don't know why this does this. Let me pull it down here. I probably didn't pay my bill or something. Okay. 29 to 32. So go ahead.
when Lamech had lived 182 years, he fathered a son, and he called his name Noah, saying, "Out of the ground that the Lord has cursed, this one shall bring us relief from our work and from the painful toil of our hands." Lamech lived after he fathered Noah 595 years and had other sons and daughters. Thus, all the days of Lamech were 777 years, and he died. After Noah was 500 years old, Noah fathered Shem, Ham, and Japheth.
All right. Now we have another exception to the pattern, or in addition to the pattern. A second sort of noteworthy exception. What's said here that's noteworthy?
Noah was over 500 years old when he was fathering children.
Yeah, that's pretty old, right?
Mhm.
But before that, but what's said about Noah before then? Let me pull this up here. He says,
This one shall bring relief.
yeah, so Noah's name is highlighted for us. And his name means, what does Noah's name mean? Anyone ever noted that?
Yeah.
Is it rest or something? Can't remember.
Yeah, rest.
Rest, okay. Noah's name means rest. It's interesting. Why is that significant? His name means rest.
Well, we've had turmoil all this time, even the ones that were basically the godly line were still struggling.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this is a moment of rest.
Yeah.
relief.
Yeah, rest from the painful toil of our hands. Why do they have painful toil with their hands?
Because it came.
Fall.
Because of the fall, right? Because that was the curse. After the fall, remember that? It's going to be, you're going to work for the sweat of your brow. It's going to be painful now. The ground is going to fight you now. It's not going to be easy for you. And so now it's like there's this longing for this rest, the painful toil of their hands. They're hardworking people. They're getting up and spending their days working all the time and longing for relief and some break of the curse. And they see something special about this Noah, that he's going to be the one to do this. And then he has other sons and daughters. And then we have Noah is another one. Noah's death is not recorded here.
Mm.
Okay. And he is, he fathers 3 sons. That's another exception too, at a very old age.
Mm.
Okay. All right, I want to do is pull up this little chart here. I sent it to you in the notes so you can see it.
Just kind of quick.
Yeah.
The fact that he had them at that late age, could he have also had children before then?
It seems in our case, no, because when the ark is built,
Mhm.
it's just the 3 boys and him. There's no other mention of other kids. But I'm not going to say no. I mean, it's possible that maybe he had kids. And again, it doesn't, that they live this long doesn't necessarily mean that that's the normal age of people. It could
Mhm.
very well be that these are just God's graces upon them to sustain them for this many years. It could very well be that people live normal lives of 100 years or so. We don't know. We just don't know. And that these are exceptions to that. Their age is remarkable. It doesn't mean that that everyone was living that long. That's the point.
We certainly see a huge drop off after the flood.
Yeah. So it's certainly possible that Noah maybe he did have lots of kids before then. And then they all just kind of died, and he started again at the age of 500 with these 3. We a lot of details we just don't know. So
Mm.
that's
I
a good
mean,
point.
Lamech had other sons before Noah, because we read about them.
Yeah.
They didn't go on the ark, so they were lost with the rest of the people that were lost.
Well, not necessarily, because again, Lamech lives, the flood happens like 600 years after he fathers Noah. So that's a long time. That's a really long time. So they didn't necessarily have to have died in the flood. Maybe they did, but they didn't have to have died. So it's hard to go back in time to figure this out, of what it could look in so many different ways. So let's take a look. I want to show you a few things from the genealogy, some of the things that we learned. First thing I want you to notice, the age at birth of the I'm not going to call it the firstborn son. That's of the special son. How about that? The one who bears the image, the one they've been waiting for. Like every family is like they're waiting for the one who will sort of carry on the calling on the name of the Lord, the one whom God has chosen. Notice the ages. What's remarkable about those ages? 130, 105, 90, 70, 65. The youngest is 65.
Mm.
And you'll notice that for the really special ones, like Enoch, how old is Jared when he has Enoch?
162.
He waits 162 years for Enoch, who is very special. And how long does Lamech wait for Noah?
82.
182.
182 years. All right. And same thing Methuselah. I mean, so those are going to be noteworthy people. The ones that it seems like the more you have to wait, the more special these people are. So when Abraham comes along, how old's Abraham when Isaac finally comes along?
100.
100.
It's 100. Anyone know how old Isaac was before Jacob and Esau come along?
I think he was like 40.
He was 40 when he married Rebecca, but he was 60
Oh,
when they
wow.
had their first kids. Yeah, she was barren for a time. So this seems to be a theme of waiting for the one that God has chosen. You'll notice the length of their days, the long lives that they have of God's grace toward them. But I want to show you something really very interesting is chart their timing here. And I want you to notice something here. So remember, Enoch is 365 years old. Look at the list here, and I want you to see who is the first of the lineage to die? And who is the second to die? Okay, take a look at the list. Who is the first? This is the year of their death after creation.
Like Adam.
Adam's the first to die, right? Who's the
Mm,
next? Or next to leave this earth?
Enoch?
That would be Enoch.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? Enoch is the next. So they all of this line who are alive witness the death of Adam, and then in just 57 years later, the next one to go is taken. It's not another death. It gives them so the death from the curse, from the fall. Adam's the first to die, but then there's this second Adam in a sense. This next one who goes is actually one who escapes death, who is granted everlasting life. So very interesting there.
Mm.
I want you to notice, look at the day that they die and look at the day that people are born. So let me ask you this, look at the list here. How many of these people in the line of Adam did Adam meet personally?
All but Noah.
Every one of them except Noah. Adam was alive for not just for Seth, but for his grandson, Enosh. He was there for his great-grandson, his great-great-grandson, is all the way down to Lamech. Adam was, let's see, Lamech was, what are we doing the calculations here, in his 50s when Adam finally died. Ponder that for a moment.
mm,
And then how many of them were alive to witness the birth of Noah? Can you see who was alive? Well, Adam had died.
mm,
Seth had just died. But Enosh and everyone else except for Enoch witnessed the birth of Noah.
mm.
And Enosh, if you remember, that's what was significant about Enosh. We just read about that at the end of chapter 4.
Oh, here's, yeah, wasn't he the one that's the new Adam?
Yeah, he's the one when they first started calling on the name of the Lord.
Yeah.
It's almost like Enosh is sort of presented at that time. He's the one connected with real faith now in the Lord when they start calling on the name of the Lord. And so it's interesting that he's also alive when Adam is born. In fact, he's going to be, Noah will be almost 90 years old when Enosh finally dies. So there's a lot going on here and a lot to be seen. You'll notice some other things too. The flood happens in 1656. That's when the flood is recorded. Noah will live another 450 years. That's the year that Methuselah dies.
Mhm.
What's remarkable about Methuselah? What's noteworthy about him?
His name.
Yeah, you know what his name means?
Yeah, when he is dead, it shall come.
Yeah. Methuselah is, Methu means to die, and Selah means to send or to and so God will send the judgment, the flood, when he dies. And what is it about Methuselah that makes him special?
Longest
He's
guy
the
ever
longest
lived.
living man recorded here, 969 years, really showing forth the grace and the patience of God as he waits so long before he finally hasn't had enough of the wickedness of the world. So it's a fascinating genealogy. It's really interesting. And we'll get into more of that.
Can I just ask, I'm confused.
Yeah.
Isn't this all BC? So shouldn't the numbers get smaller instead of bigger?
No, it's not BC. It's after creation we're going with. So basically we're just kind of starting with so basically
Using our calendar.
we'll call it after creation. How about that? So it's our own little
Okay,
system here. It's after creation. So it's because we don't know BC exactly what it would be. People can take guesses of it, but if you just go by Adam was created and they lived 930 years, okay, it's 930. So that's how we would date it. So, all right, great.
I get confused real easily.
Yeah. Yeah. Dates are confusing, man. They get crazy. So, all right, I think we'll
Wait.
wrap it up there. Go ahead.
I find that interesting that Methuselah basically was the prediction of the flood. And again, I can't pull names out of my head, but when they brought Jesus as a baby to be circumcised, what was the gentleman's name that was told he wouldn't die until he saw Jesus?
Yeah, Simeon.
Simeon, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like
Yeah.
we're given these predictions in there.
That's interesting. Very interesting. Methuselah is very special character here. So it's that's the line. And again, you'll notice with the line is we don't know. This is clearly the godly line, the line that we're pleased with, the line that God has blessed. We know that he's blessed them because they have many sons and daughters. They live a long life. And it says specifically they walked with God. There's references to them, God giving them rest from the curse, and references to his giving them victory over death, even, and saving them from judgment so that none of them perish in the flood. Methuselah, we know it's natural causes. He didn't get washed away in the flood before the flood comes, and everyone else dies before the flood happens. They are not under that judgment of God. It's a line of grace, and there's no accomplishes. It's listed there. There's nothing about their good deeds, about what made them worthy of this. They are just those who called upon the name of the Lord, and they were saved. So even from the beginning, we see God's plan of salvation for us in that genealogy. So
I always thought that Methuselah was another name for Satan.
for Satan,
Yeah,
you're thinking of, is that Mephisto?
Or
You're thinking
Beelzebub?
Mephistopheles, you're probably thinking of, right?
that may be it.
Yeah, Mephistopheles, yeah.
Or Nietzsche, an old-time writer Nietzsche, I think used Methuselah or something, but it may be Mephistopheles.
Yeah, I'm not sure. So, yeah. So, all right, we're gonna stop recording here for a second, and then we'll go on.